as detailed in Table 2 of the Conservation Handbook.
Yeah, we looked at this yesterday, didn't we?
Actually, it's not in the table, sorry.
It's in the paragraph
It's in the
above,
paragraph
yeah.
associated. So taking that forward, 4.77 hectares of habitat, irrespective of quality.
It's page 18. Yeah.
Yeah, results in approximately 10 dormice across that habitat type. Sorry, that quantum of habitat.
So without an understanding of what the population is, how is it possible to make a judgment about the FCS?
You look at the available resources, the type of resources that the habitats currently provide. You then look at what you could do to elevate, recreate, additional provisions that you could provide to elevate the carrying capacity of the retained habitats, such that you can be comfortable that the favourable conservation status can be maintained.
And that's what you've done.
Yes.
Yeah, the paragraph we've just been talking about, you refer to that, don't you, in your rebuttal? This is page 18 of the handbook. You refer to that at 219 in your rebuttal. And that's where you get the average density of 2.2 per hectare from. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
And what that paragraph says in the handbook at 2.3, it begins with dormice live at low numbers even in the best habitats, and then goes on to talk about average densities. Yeah, and you accept that. That's right, isn't it? That they
particularly when you're reviewing it in that context against other small mammals, such as wood mice, which obviously can live up to densities of 40 per hectare. So in comparison, yes, dormice are known to live at low densities.
So it's right to say that they pretty much always live at low density.
In comparison to other mice species, yes, they live in comparatively low densities.
And isn't it a consequence, therefore, of that the quality of the habitat cannot be a good guide to expected numbers?
No, I'd suggest that's not correct. As it's detailed within that table before us, the quality of the habitat is key to supporting a different density. So the higher quality of the habitat could be considered and was discussed and agreed yesterday at supporting a greater number of dormice.
Yeah. And the table, we can see there that there's at the top, the optimal habitat is described there at the top there of table 2. Deciduous woodland with abundant scrub and vigorous understory. In terms of the, well, first of all, it's right, isn't it, as Mr. Harvey said yesterday, that is, and we can see from the numbers suggested in the table, that's head and shoulders the best, the optimal.
Yeah, traditional managed woodland, lots of coppicing, ancient, well-connected, good size, as detailed can be expected or could be expected to support up to 10 adults per hectare.
Yeah, and that's quite some way above the carrying capacity of the other habitats which are specified in the table.
Yes.
Which are all much the same in terms of density.
Is the scale, yes.
So the fundamental supposition, if you like, for your strategy is that by providing higher quality habitat, they will support higher numbers.
Yes.
So we don't know, we don't have an estimate of the population currently.
We've got an estimate. We haven't got a true identified population number, which, like I say, is impossible. Even
well, if we'd done a nest survey, for instance, that would have taken us closer.
That would still inform a likelihood. It wouldn't inform an actual population in terms of actually going out and counting every individual dormice or animal on site.
And then the principle which you've accepted is that the expectation of population in the mitigation strategy is based on the enhanced quality as you intended.
By elevating the features of known value and requirements for meeting the ecological needs of dormice, the retained habitat can be elevated to improve their carrying capacity and thus density of dormice that they can support.
But you aren't in position, are you, to make an estimate of what that population might be?
It's about maintaining the favourable concentration. It's about maintaining the current status of the population within the site and local area. So the measures I've put forward, I consider would allow that test to be met.
So whatever the population is, and currently you've made an estimate, you're suggesting it would be the same post mitigation.
That's the test that needs to be met, maintained.
But we do know, don't we, that approximately half of the habitat is to be removed with the development.
In quantum terms, correct, not in quality terms.
All right, now, you, in your rebuttal, you've helpfully set out the quantum in your table. The reference.
Page 14.
Yeah, that's it. Because this is the same table that appeared in the technical note, but there were one or two didn't quite add up.
Correct.
Yeah. Right. So we can see from this table on page 14 that the pre-development area in total, that's the first column with numbers, is 4.77 hectares, and you've split that into the three categories. The total lost is the next column, 2.26 hectares.
Yes.
And then the total remaining retained, it's area post-development. So that's the remaining, that's the penultimate column.
Yes.
2.79 hectares. And they don't quite add up because you've created a quarter of a hectare of new habitat, yeah?
There is additional habitats that have been provided, yes.
Yeah, so you've accepted that that's approximately half. I mean, it's not precisely, but approximately half the habitat is to be lost. Now, you accept in your evidence, don't you, that one of the key principles of mitigation is that there should be minimal loss of habitat.
Yes, I take that further. Actually, I take it minimum loss in the carrying capacity. Yes, the no net loss, as I stipulated in my evidence in chief, is not a defined and absolute requirement to meet the tests, and that's set out clearly within the method statement and license processing.
Yeah, so just so that the inspector can see what we're talking about, if we go to the handbook again, page 47. The heading is in the middle column, key principles of mitigation. But then over on the far column, the second bullet, mitigation should aim to address, there should be minimal loss of suitable habitat as significant impacts are predicted. Compensation often more than has been lost. So that's why, and you accept that is a key principle.
Yes.
It's also, you've referred to the method statement, and this is Mr. Harvey's appendix 3. And we turn to page 9. And it's the paragraph under E 3.3, provide further brief comments, explanation if required. Note that compensation measures are expected to result in no net loss of dormice habitat. Yeah, if your proposals result in overall net loss of available habitat, please provide justification on how the FCS will be maintained. Yeah,
that's correct, and that's part of the key consideration that's been undertaken as part of the design of the mitigation strategy submitted.
And it's also true, whilst we're on the method statement, if we go back to section E 3.1, which starts at page 7, there's a table there where enhancement or restoration of habitat is to be specified of each category, and they're all, it's indicated that they should be shown either as length in meters or area in hectares. Yeah, and there's no talk of quality there, is there?
No, but there's additional justification as detailed in your previous question, where you can summarise in detail the quality, and there's no finite amount of space that you can provide or detail that's required. Obviously, the more information you provide, the statutory is better equipped to providing a judgment against that key test. A lot of the details that would require to support the license application, of course, aren't available at this stage. We've provided a framework in the mitigation strategy. It's not finalised. There are additional elements which could and can be detailed further. And as part of further negotiation with Natural England, they may come back with questions, they may come back with queries, they may wish to see a further quantum of habitat being provided. That is part of the license discussion. As Mr. Harvey mentioned yesterday, he's been refused or been part of detailed conversations on license applications that have had further information requests come back. I have too. Some of those are looking for additional elements of habitat provision or additional clarity in certain parts of the application process. And it's that part of the discussion with the statutory authority. We get into the granular detail of the provisions.
And you've accepted, I think, that there is no recognised basis for making the assessment into the quality.
There's clear guidance stipulated, and I set that out, which any professional ecologist or dormouse ecologist to look at and consider when evaluating habitats.
I understand what you say about the need for justification and the detail and the granularity and so on, but why do you think the advice is so clearly for no net loss of habitat?
It's a tool because of, I suppose, unknowns in certain use. That a no net loss is a safe position to ensure broad availability of habitat irrespective of quality.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite clear, isn't it, that the headline is you shouldn't be having less habitat than you started with.
These guidelines, they're not statutory requirements. So guidelines are guidelines. Statutory requirements is part of the licensing process. There is provisions within the licensing process to deviate away from a no net loss. That's what's been taken forward in this instance, and justification for that will be provided.
Right. Okay. Now, I wondered if I could just focus now on your categorization of habitat quality, and this is another of your ECO2s. This one is in the mitigation note. I think that's where it is. This is the the three ECO2 dormouse records and habitat suitability, the pink, yellow, and blue.
Yes.
Now, if you could keep your finger in there, but also turn to the ECO2 in the ecological assessment. Yeah.
Yes.
So the highest quality on the first plan we've established is across the north and round the north and that little spur down the middle, and that's essentially is that hedgerow?
It's hedgerow and woodland edge. So yes, the habitats as I detailed in my evidence for chief, those areas are considered to be more mature, particularly the hedge lines, more structured, higher density of fruiting and available foraging resources for dormice, and also being well connected to the wider landscape. The habitats they're in.
And going back to our table 2 in the guidance, the handbook, sorry, page 18. Which category would you say falls in there? I mean, we can see hedgerow is the fifth down.
Yes, so clearly the hedgerows are hedgerows. So they would fall under the hedgerow category. The woodland edge would fall under woodland. It doesn't fall squarely with any of the defined habitat or broad habitats detailed.
Yeah, it's not, the woodland edge isn't optimal habitat, is it?
No. In terms of traditional coppice, hazel, oak, woodland, no. Or sweet chestnut.
Right, and then back to the first plan, medium suitability, that's the yellow, which is the largest area. And we can see from the second ECO2, ecological features, that comprises largely scrub, semi-improved grassland and tree lines. Yeah.
Doesn't really, it's not the grassland, it is a scrub. Obviously we've taken a accurate calculation in terms of mapping the total woodland cover, the canopy cover. So yeah, the grassland habitat isn't included in my assessment of median habitat. The oversailing tree canopies is. I think that's a fair and accurate position to take.
Right. And then finally, the low suitability, that broadly coincides with scattered trees and a bit of scrub.
Yeah, small pockets of isolated scrub and the self-set oak trees, the young oak trees in the southwest of the site.
So finally, then, on the, obviously this is an outline application.
Yes.
It does specify a quantum of development.
The parameters plan sets that, yes.
Yeah, and would you expect that to change at reserve matter stage?
No, I believe the parameters would be fixed at the point of outline.
If Mr. Harvey is correct, it may be that the scheme would have to be changed, wouldn't it?
Mr. Harvey evidenced yesterday that he was not sure a license or the favourable conservation status could not be met. And indeed, he advised that a EPS license could be attained at the reserve matters or in due course.
Yeah, but that may require an amendment to the scheme, right? Your whole point is you don't know at this stage, but it's possible in due course with reserve matters that English Natural England would say that ultimately, well, Mr. Harvey's correct. There's too much loss of habitat here. You need to reconfigure the scheme.
That's not my opinion.
So overall, I think we've established, haven't we, that you don't know with any precision what the current population of the dormice is.
We've used guidance, which is available to us, to inform the likelihood of the population present.
And you don't know, you don't make any assessment of what it's likely to be after mitigation.
In terms of the population class?
Yeah, no, the actual population, the size of it.
No. Although the increase in suitability, one can expect that the carrying capacity, the density of the populations within those retaining enhanced habitats would be elevated.
And without that information, it's difficult to make an assessment at this stage of FCS, isn't it?
It's not a requirement at this stage to make that full determination and meet that test. The test is
simple. Rather, whether it's likely to be granted.
Not unlikely.
Not unlikely to be granted. But that's not a judgment you can make properly at this stage, is it, without that?
I've got to use professional judgment, as we all do, in coming to my considerations and evidence. The information that I've detailed, the submissions, which are quite lengthy, the survey effort, the assessment process, the variable case law, and indeed guidance leads me to conclusions that it would not be unlikely that an EPS license would be secured and therefore meet the required tests at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders.
All right. Yes. Any other questions before Mr. Taylor?
Thank you, Chairman. I have 3 points. First, almost unbelievably, an article appeared in The Guardian yesterday, Killer Kitties. And ultimately, this refers to a paper in Nature, a senior journal, a world study, and they have documented, it's something of a meta study, study of studies, something like 2,000 species may be killed by cats. Well, I felt it important to draw that to the inspector's attention. Second,
how does that frame itself in a question to Mr. Saunders, perhaps?
Well,
if you were coming
I
to
do
that,
have another
apologies.
question. I was bringing it to your attention
Yeah,
because
I think the best thing to do would be to frame it as a question.
Okay.
Perhaps you've
Right.
read this information in The Guardian.
Yes,
We covered briefly predation by cats.
just so.
Perhaps you could frame that as a question to Mr. Saunders.
Okay. Are you perhaps aware of the article which I saw in The Guardian? You may have been alerted directly to the paper in Nature concerning this major study of predation by cats. And in, okay. So that's the question.
I'm not aware of that particular paper.
No, okay. I might just comment that other countries are taking very considerable measures. In New Zealand, it's perceived as a significant threat to indigenous species. Okay, I do have a question which I could pose to Mr. Saunders. I might have posed yesterday, and that is the time dimension. That's the growth of this hazel species of tree. How long must we wait before it becomes attractive food to dormice?
I covered this off in my rebuttal, but I believe obviously you won't mean that. But yes, using more mature stock, large stock, we can expect that fruiting could be provided within two years. If you planted it from seed, then obviously it's going to take a significant longer period, or indeed using whips or small planting stock. Elevating and providing more mature planting stock would expedite the fruiting period down to approximately 2 years.
Would you help us with the range? So you've identified seedlings, I think, and whips, and could put time periods on those?
Yeah, I believe the guidance, I'm not a horticultural expert, but I believe the guidance advises 7 to 10 years for seedlings and whips to fruit.
Okay. Yes. Well, I think the inspector would need to know that was which of these was proposed, and obviously they have different implications for developers.
They do. That would be part of the reserve matter submission, and therefore wouldn't be available to the inspector to decide at this time. But certainly the landscaping scheme and the provision of planting would be secured by way of condition.
Yes, is correct that the important word is condition, i.e. If the mitigation measure proposed was a conditional requirement.
That's what planning conditions would stipulate, yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And my third point is I noted Ms. Saunders as saying, Natural England would not grant a license on outline alone.
That's correct.
Yes. Then I'm puzzled, Mr. Chairman, as to why Mr. Walker was pressed repeatedly by Mr. Simons when he, Mr. Simons, knew that the mitigation measures were hypothetical. They lay in the future. It was impossible for Mr. Walker to know the future, as it is for all of us.
Yeah, I assumed you meant Mr. Harvey.
Sorry,
so, yeah.
sorry. Yes.
So there was a question for me.
Yeah, I think
Well,
you can sort of assume that as a kind of a question. Really, it's the question of outline versus detail. If you think you can add anything to help.
The assessment process that Natural England requires, by necessity,